the Yoruba concept of spirituality is so intertwined with language that when you say certain things, when you say certain words, you are waking some forces. And if you don't know how to put them back to sleep, they begin to haunt you.
Quarter life crisis. What's the first story you remember hearing as a child?
Well, I grew up hearing a lot of moonlight stories, actually, the 𝒖�𝒓𝒕𝒆𝒓 the 𝒖�𝒂𝒓𝒕𝒆� and all of that.
So is there anyone that you still remember up till this day?
Well, I do remember a lot of them, actually, because I am a full-time Yoruba storyteller and poet also. So
Yeah.
I always have to revisit those stories, either to retell or, for the sake of infusion into my work. So I remember a lot of them. The 𝐉𝐮𝐬𝐺𝐠 story, the 𝐘𝐨𝐫𝐿, a lot of stories, to be honest. And I do have a vivid memory of a lot of them still.
If your life was a Yoruba folktale, what would the moral of the lesson be?
Oh, wow. I think the moral would just be to learn to embrace failures rather than run from it. I feel like there is this concept we've built over time where we teach people to always succeed, but we do not teach them to, become homely with failure. Not like, expect failure, but not that, even when you failed, it is a process to, reimagine, reattempt, and do it again. And personally, introspecting now, for every point I've had a stumble, it gives me much strength, and there's this feel of innovation that comes with it, and you get to approach the entire diagram and the entire system from a new perspective entirely. So yes, I've learned to be aware of failure, not necessarily see it as a bad thing, but as a propeller.
I like that. What's a random Yoruba phrase or saying that always makes you laugh?
I think it's an insult. 𝒖𝒂𝒓𝒕𝒆𝒓, in just contextual meaning, it means an idiot or a stupid person. But when you break down the word itself, it means someone who sips his mucus alongside his pack. And the combination of the insults is just weird. Like, why? How? What were you thinking? How?
Oh, God. That was a good one. I remember I went through your Instagram page and I saw your profile. I was trying to get a sense of, how to script the whole video. And I saw your profile and I was like, oh, perfect. This is it. So I saw that it said necessary stories should be told even from a small room. So
Yes.
I want to ask, what necessary story are you telling right now?
So I believe that, we are at this point in, the artistic stratosphere and all of that, where people are putting out stories of, the regular grass to grace stories, people are looking for art as an escape. But I feel like in that process, we are leaving out some part of the people who make the ecosystem. And those are the marginalized people. So who are talking about the widows, who are talking about the homeless children, under also the bridge, who are talking about, children who suffer from certain health conditions, muscular dystrophy. There are, those people below the pyramids. We do not actively engage those conversations. So, even when you see creatives who attempt under the poverty porn, kind of writing and output, you still realize that it is trauma recycling, and then, everybody's just approaching, rape, sexual harassment, which is honestly fine. I'm very big on conversations that has to do with, sexual assault and all of that. But sexual assault is not like the only, bone of contention we have. Yes. There are a lot of old women. There are old women suffering from dementia that have been tagged as witches. And then, they are suffering from neglection. There is something called, I'm trying to remember the English word, but it is called abusing when a woman gives birth and then, I think it's postpartum stress or something. No one talks about these conversations. We've left it out, but they are an important part of, what makes us who we are. And when I say necessary stories should be told, even from a small room, it's because I've met a lot of creatives who believe that they have to have a certain platform before they can come out and talk about, things that they are passionate about. So, I grew up, I lived all my life in a small room, and then, just through the digital platform, I've been able to convey most of my thoughts. I feel like there's really nothing stopping the story. The storyteller will die, but the stories will remain.
We live on, yeah. How do you decide which stories deserve your voice?
I feel like every story needs to be told. I feel like what just makes it peculiar is that the story should come to you. So I don't believe in telling a story that I do not have enough information on, or that I do not even feel led to talk about. So I want to write a poem on, menstruation and the whole concept of, school kids. When you go to ghettos, you still see some girls, students who they are taught by their mothers to use rags and all of that instead of pads, And then I remember someone telling me that what put you in that position to be talking about menstruation. But I feel like there is a systemic approach, exactly, and there is that in-depth personal approach which I may not necessarily have the right to talk about. But to tell me that I cannot even talk about these things, even when some of these things. So it's not necessarily the duty of women to buy pads for women, or to do donations of pads and all of that. In a sane society, these are things that should it should be no-brainers, support and all of that. So if women or enough women are not talking about it, then nothing stops the men from talking about it.
I agree. So you perform mainly in Yoruba, right?
Yes.
So have you ever felt pressure to perform in another language or make it more acceptable to the Western audience, since not everybody understands Yoruba?
When I started out in the performance, poetry scene, I started mostly with English words, and then you just could mix and put one or two Yoruba lines. But that flair was there right from time. And then, by the time I decided that I was going to switch to Yoruba mainly, I had some years where, I would leave home, set out, planning to perform a Yoruba work. And by the time I get to the hall or the event venue, I am having mixed thoughts. And then I end up performing English. And then I'll randomly just meet an audience who will tell me, oh, your performance was great, beautiful. And then I'll be like, I was actually planning to perform in Yoruba. And then the person will go, but you should have done it. And it got to a point, I just feel like when everyone is doing the same thing, no one is actually doing something, intriguing or worth documenting.
How do you stand out?
Exactly. And because, like I said, I am keen on telling necessary stories. And I feel like if you want to tell the stories of people in the grassroots, people below the pyramid, you have to tell it in a language that they understand. I can't go to, a random pepper seller in Oshodi and be telling her, oh, the moon kissed the sun.
Oh, good.
See, so, and poetry is, nuanced, is a core part of Yoruba anyway. So why not? So I think over the years, I've had those fears, those pressure and all of that. But now, the only pressure that comes from me will be the one I give to myself. So even if there is no Yoruba speaking audience in a hall of 1,000 people, I will really still do a Yoruba piece, because I feel like at the end of the day, art is more about the reading and the emotions, even more than the language. So I want to be able to make you feel the emotions, because when someone is crying here, when someone is crying here and someone is crying somewhere in Paris or Rome, the emotions are still same. The facial expression are still likely same. And then when someone is happy, the way you express it is still same. So if I'm reading an angry poem, or poem filled with rage, yes, you can still feel that rage within you, even if you don't understand that word. And really, if there are 1,000 people in the hall and I'm able to speak to one person, then that is because my message is for that one person and I'm satisfied.
How do you make Yoruba art and culture relevant to our generation, the current Gen Z that is mostly attracted to stuff that is, shiny or cute, aesthetic, for lack of a better word. So how do you make sure you connect to our generation where not all of us even understand in-depth Yoruba?
Well, I feel like culture naturally is relevant, is integral to every generation and era to find ourselves. But because there's a problem of post-colonial mentalities and all of that, and people are driven by aesthetics, I feel one thing I've found lacking over the years is that even some propagates, some, I wouldn't want to say all, some propagates of the culture back then explored the language and the cultural preservation from a place of fear. So you want to draw me to your culture, you want to draw me to your heritage, and you are bringing it from a place of fear. If you do this, that will happen. If you do that, this would happen, which in the real sense is not even what our culture is embodied. You do not teach a child with fear. You teach a child with love.
Yes.
So I'm one of those people who grew up watching 𝐒𝐨𝐻𝒕𝒆𝒓 𝑘𝐨𝐻𝒕𝒆𝒓 and even though I wouldn't call him a cultural propagate, because there was a part of Islamic religion in his production motivations. Then one of the disservice that he actually did to the culture was that he portrayed Yoruba spirituality from the dark lenses. So it was back then when I was growing up and I watched movies like 𝒂𝒐𝒧🐂, I would travel to my hometown and I would legit see an old woman and I would be shivering in fear because these movies have taught me that any old woman with a wrinkled face or something is a witch and all of that. But that negates the entire idea of Yoruba spirituality. So my duty, and I think the duty of so many cultural propagates in this age, is to retell these narratives from a place of valid beauty. Shell out the beauty. I see a lot of people who tell me they want to learn Yoruba language simply because of my craft, and I feel like I'm doing something valid because years back, what was the reception like? What was the acceptance like? So it doesn't have to be you are called to come and do Yoruba performance or something, and then you are scattering blood all over your body, you are spilling like it doesn't have to be
like that.
Exactly.
Yes.
The culture is, and I feel so for every other culture. They are beautiful. They are extremely,
like why is French known as the language of love?
You get.
And Yoruba is,
You get. And when you flesh out the idea of Yoruba, even in love and romance, you see that the choices of adjectives and metaphors are actually very poetic. You hear things like 𝐷𝒐𝐿𝒐𝒂𝒓𝒕𝒆𝒓 and all of that, and you discover that there is so much intentionality, but we don't talk about these things. We don't approach them, and that is why you discover that when we scarcely, encounter works like 𝒖𝒂𝒓𝒕𝒆𝒓 by 𝐷𝒐𝒂𝒓𝒕𝒆𝒓 by 𝐷𝒐𝒂𝒓 by Constant, people are head over heels like, this is a beautiful love song. How many love songs do we even have in Yoruba to, begin with? Instead, everyone keeps recycling story of, Babalawo is doing money ritual, they are causing someone's head, and then you come to realize that this portrayals actually even negates the actual fact. Like there is nothing like money ritual that has to do with slaughtering or exterminating human lives in the Yoruba and spirituality. But the artists are portraying a total flip side, all from a place of capitalism and to appeal to the Western image. But I feel like you can tell good stories, authentic stories, and still preserve your legacy. I mean, we have beautiful Nubia, so many years and still doing his stuff. Youth are turning up for his concerts.
Yes.
Or on a normal age, how many youth would readily come around for someone like beautiful Nubia's concert and all? But they relate with the authenticity and the beauty is trying to portray. And I feel it is something that we should emulate, especially for if we want continuity.
You have a book.
Yes.
Segilola. Please pronounce it for me.
I am curious to see your
Aromire Ogidon.
Aromire
Ogidon. Okay, what does it mean?
It is actually a name. Segilola Aromire Ogidon is actually
someone's name.
A name. It's it's an eponymous choice of name, and then even though they are like each of the name naturally they
It's a
have
strong
their
meaning itself.
own, yes, meaning. Like 𝐒𝐨𝒊𝒐𝒊𝒔𝒊𝒔 is an inverted, it's a deliberately inverted version of the actual name 𝐒𝐨𝒊𝒐𝒊𝒔, and 𝐒𝐨𝒊𝒐𝒊𝒔 in Yoruba is a form of waist bead. 𝐒𝐨𝒊𝒐𝒊𝒔, the 𝐒𝐨𝐫 waist bead connotes honor. 𝐒𝐨𝐫 waist bead connotes, affluence. But I deliberately inverted it to 𝐒𝐨𝒊𝒐𝒊𝒔 because the character that bears the name anyway is a dysfunctional character. It's a very annoying character. And Aromire is a name peculiar to families that, engages in the art of tie and dye. Aromire, Aro, that is dye. And then we have Ogidan, which encapsulates the family of white cat.
Okay.
So 𝐒𝐨𝒊𝒐𝒊𝒔 Aromire Ogidan cumulatively is the name of the eponymous character. And to be very honest, I say that when you are looking for an easy read or a soft read, don't read 𝐒𝐨𝒊𝒐𝒊𝒔 Aromire Ogidan because it's very annoying. It's a very annoying book, and it basically explores the idea of toxic relationships, self-love, the idea of magnum, the idea of abuse, and how abuse is not only limited to sexual abuse. There's emotional abuse, there's financial abuse, mental, and all of that.
Yeah.
And the fact that all of this abuse do not necessarily even have to come from strangers. Most of the time, it comes from the people in your circle, the people in your spaces, the people you call family. So 𝐒𝐨𝒊𝒐𝒊𝒔 as one character is one that till date, for everyone that has read the book, still gets very pissed off by the character because her concept of love was that if it does not hurt, then it is not worthy of being loved. So
and that's some trauma.
Exactly. Her concept of love was that if it does not hurt, if it does not make her cry, if it does not put her esteem, shatter his. In fact, she does not have an esteem. Safe to say, she lacks esteem, completely. And I feel like for most people who have read the book and they feel triggered, they feel annoyed, it is because it mirrors something in you and it amplifies that quiet in you. If you read a work of art or you experience a work of art so much that it triggers you and unsettles you, it's because there's a quiet in you that aligns with something you've encountered in that book and it has reminded you of. And on the flip side of it, I feel like when you see conversations about, promote Yoruba culture, resuscitate Yoruba heritage, everybody is doing skill with content, but no one is doing text literature. And then what are the children in schools reading?
Right?
Even when I was still in secondary school, it was always a struggle for my Yoruba teacher to get us literature text. It was always a struggle. And now it's even terrible. Can you confidently walk into a bookshop now and then, say, you want to get 𝒍𝒐𝒊𝒔, you want to get 𝒍𝒐𝒊𝒔. No, it's not possible because these books are more or less extinct.
Yeah.
Who is fine. It's good to have audio works. It's good to have visual works. But people like us, I refer us as, dry sticks. So if you try to bend a dry stick, it will bend, it will break. But if it is still, fresh, you can still bend it and extract the juices and all of that. And the children are actually the fresh ones. So if you don't understand Yoruba or you cannot read Yoruba accurately, at this point in your life, it does not necessarily stop you from surviving or getting well-paying career that will sustain you. It's not a major life hack. It is not mandatory. But for little children, the 3-year-old, the 4-year-old, the 5-year-old, kids know or watch Yoruba movies.
Even Yoruba cartoons same go.
You get. I was still talking with a friend, earlier this year about the idea of having works like Super Strikers in Yoruba, having the Yoruba format where you retell. In fact, a friend is working on such a project that has to do with retelling works like that using Yoruba approach and telling the Yoruba mythology, Ogun, Ṣàngó, and all of that. It is easier to teach the children to read these things. And to be very honest, you cannot accurately tell your cultural story using another man's language. So you cannot tell me to tell you the story of Ṣàngó or Orunmila, and I'm now writing it in English. It would never make sense. But when these works are not even available to begin with, the children will have to make do with what is available. And that is how we end up raising, adults who do not have enough knowledge about where they are coming from. If you don't know where you are coming from, how can you know where you are going to?
What's your advice for artists who feel like they don't have the necessary resources to perform or to tell a story?
I have come to realize over time, even though, it's more like asking me now, what is my advice for myself? Because there are days when I feel like that. But to be honest, I've come to realize that you can never have all of the necessary resources. There will always be something left. When you have a laptop, you are thinking of ring lights. When you have ring lights, you are thinking of mic. When you have mic, you are thinking of this.
Actually,
there is always something left to get. And because, growth is a continuous process and you are trying to be better than your last output, you cannot keep waiting. Because if you decide to keep waiting until, you have the enough finance or funds to, make that project come alive. How much fund is enough fund? How much resources is enough resources? How much, resources is limited resources? So I have become very spontaneous in my life. And I think that is what have helped me with most of my projects. I've kept S01, that is 𝐘𝐨𝐬𝐢𝐧𝐠, on March break since 2021, 2022 Jerry. And I just woke up in 2023 and I was like, you know what, this book is coming out. I don't want to care.
Done is better than perfect.
You get. And at the end of the day, I don't believe in the idea of, making a work. But I believe that I would exert as much strength. Because when you look at it, what we see as, the inadequacies is actually part of the story. And it makes it easier for you to track your growth and your process. But when you're saying, you realize that you're actually stuck without knowing it because you are waiting and time is passing. And before you know it, they are telling you that, Yemi, when are you bringing your husband home? And boom, it's over.
So your advice is to
start anywhere you are. Anywhere at all.
When you tell heavy stories, how do you protect your mental health?
Well, I genuinely do not. Protect my mental health. I just feel like at the end of the day, art is the only thing, making me insane most of the time. And it's still the only thing keeping me sane. So and it is why I run from capitalism. Because already I am abnormal enough. Now, if I delve into exactly asylum, but I feel like at the end of the day, art is a gift and a cost.
Actually.
And I feel like the cost that comes with it is, all of that disruptions with self, your internal words, people telling you that is deep, that is beautiful, but in your head, you are running mad.
Bro, you don't know how deep I had to go to bring out something that deep.
You get, in your head, you are running mad. Especially for someone who tells, cultural stories, and I have to investigate spirituality. Sometimes there are stories that actually tell, the Yoruba concept of spirituality is so intertwined with language that when you say certain things, when you say certain words, you are waking some forces. And if you don't know how to put them back to sleep, they begin to haunt you. But people just listen to it. You are so fluent in Yoruba, you are so good, but you're actually, putting yourself in trouble one way or the other. You did not, even realize it.
Just like actors that you go to do research for certain movies.
You are the who does spoken words.
You have me fine.
Great to meet you, Chief.
Fine.
What's the name?
Yemi.
It's nice.
Thank you so much. I don't get tired of saying this particular story. So I worked on a project a few years back. Funny enough, it's still one of my most widely accepted work. 𝐼𝐻𝒻𝒐 that it had to do with deification of women. And after the entire production, putting out the work, my tongue actually, what is the word now? What is the word for law?
You got tongue tied?
Yes. And for months I was actually unable to speak, unable to speak. I had to, I was taken down to my mom's hometown for treatment. Went to hospitals. Hospitals could not figure out anything. It was a lot of back and forth. And then, by the time I was done with it, I had a lot of, close associates telling me, you can just write poem about Iwalewa. I'm not poem good. And then the next minute, I am writing about issue again. And they're like, you'll still kill yourself one day. And then I just feel like if we are all scared to tell these stories. And now, the funny thing is not, I did not go through all of that because, the stories I told were not meant to be told. I only went through all of that simply because I told a story. I started a story that I was not aware of how to end it. Now, when you begin something and you don't know how to end it, you open a 𝐾𝐨𝐬𝐢𝐵 of chaos and things begin to happen. When you open someone's door and you don't close it, flies, all of that begins to enter, and then the whole house becomes disrupted. And I feel that is what I see a lot of people tapping into Yoruba content creation and all of that these days. There is religion, and there's culture, and there's spirituality. Know what you are getting yourself into. Know how deep you want to go before you plunge into it. But if you just plunge into it and you pick a textbook of 𝒖𝒂𝒓𝒕𝒆𝒓 and you just pick one Odufa and you are reciting it for Instagram like stubborn no by.
Bro. So what is a story you have been carrying that you still haven't been able to let go of?
I feel like I haven't, I have touched on the peripherals of, widowhood. Because, 2 years back, I lost my dad, and, I would not say I went through the throes of widowhood. My mother went through that throes of widowhood, but I was present,
yes,
all through that process. So I saw it happening in real time, neglection, castigations, and all of that. And, I have addressed it a bit. Even my forthcoming book, 𝒖𝒂𝒓𝒕𝒆𝒓, explores the idea of widowhood and black tax. But I feel like something that I have not fully explored, and, I'm not willing to let go until I do, is the concept of a woman losing a husband is enough loss. But a woman losing a grown-up child is, another trauma on its own that we don't. When you lose your husband, it's hard, it's a pain you have to carry. But when you lose your child, and then having to lose your husband, and in the space of 6 months you lose your child, I carried my sister's corpse from Ibadan down to Lagos, and till now I have deliberately kept myself away from that part of the story and pretended as if nothing happened, because I'm still struggling to accept all of that fact. And I still wake up every day seeing my mom having that that subtle fear, when I step out and she's calling 5 minutes later, and all of that call, it's coming from a place of care, but there's a part of it coming from a place of phobia, like, come on, I'm to look come out to an accident. And we don't even, going back to necessary stories, we don't even approach these stories enough. And for someone like me who have, had the misfortune of encountering it on a personal level, I have not touched on it yet, because when I do, I don't just want it to be one of those stories that just buzzes away. I want it to be a story that unearth the conversations we are refusing to have, because a lot of people are suffering from grief, and they do not even, they do not acknowledge it enough, especially in the cultural sphere. But there's something broken in them. There's a word that has been cracked that we don't talk about in the concept of, Yoruba says you must be strong for your children, you must be. I heavily want to explore the idea of motherhood, grief, and the cycle of losing a child, and the detachment process. Like, do they really get detached? Do a mother really get detached from her child when the child is no more?
I don't think they do. They always carry that loss with them.
Right.
I'm sorry for your loss.
Thank you. My name is 𝒖𝒂𝒓𝒕𝒆𝒓 𝑳𝒊𝒔𝒊𝒔, and you are watching Quarter Life Crisis.
Àyànfẹ́, bí mo bá wí fún ọ pé mo nífẹ̀ẹ́ rẹ, ohun tí mo wí fún ọ gangan ni pé ìwọ aya, ìwọ olùfẹ́, ìwọ ààyò, ìwọ rọ̀ dẹ̀dẹ̀dẹ̀dẹ̀ ó sì má jà. Ó wù mí ju Olódùmarè lọ.